Hello, everyone. Danica, did you get my email about running the meeting, or would you like me to run it as I usually do?
Well, I'm parking, so I'm going to be in 1 sec. Do you mind starting or
Yes, I
I'll
can
be
go ahead and start.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No worries. All right. Welcome to the University Hill Commercial Area Management Commission in downtown. It is July 7th, and I will call roll. Dane Anderson. See Dane online. I can't hear you. All right. We'll move on and we'll see if we can work out that. Dane is here. Trent Bush.
Here.
Ben Holland.
Here.
Cal Jones.
Here.
And Danica Powell is on her way.
Here.
I will now turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Anderson. We can hear him. If not, we will continue with, if Mark could take over procedural items.
Sure, I can do our oath of office quickly. So Ben, all you have to do is just raise your right hand.
Okay, that's fine.
And then you have to just say the oath out loud and then we'll
Okay.
take the form after that.
Cool. All right. I, Ben Holland, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado and the charter and ordinances of the city of Boulder, and faithfully perform the duties of the office of a member of the University Hill Commercial Area Management Commission, which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Feels weighty, doesn't it?
I'm excited. Thank you all.
So now you all just need to do your approval of your May minutes from our joint meeting. So if someone would like to entertain a motion and welcome to take that. Move that we approve the minutes. I'll second. Second, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Hi.
Those have been approved for May. Thank you. I think we're back over to Melissa for open comment. Do we have any members of
We do not have any members of the public.
popular this evening?
Yeah.
Give Danica a second before we jump in. We got a handful, I think, of consent items, so if there's questions on those, let us know. Otherwise, I think we can hand it over to you, Dakota, for a quick update.
Yeah.
Start it on helpful.
Okay. A Boulder update, vacancies. Recently, there's been 2 updates that we heard. The old, he put in a pool table just after.
Autos?
Yeah, autos, they just signed someone to go in there. I haven't heard who will be leasing, but Colorado Group did announce that they signed someone in there.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and Summit Taco, which maybe you guys heard, will be going into the spot next to them. Scrooby School before that,
Right.
many Mexican restaurants before. Yeah, Summit's awesome. They have a place in Longmont. They do like cool community events as well, so it should be a good addition. And there was one new food court stall filled in the past month. So those are the new ones we're aware of. Branded Beat, who we're working with to do our social media this month when they're on the hill capturing content. I asked them to specifically kind of do a check through, and they're going to give us an updated list, and we'll have that update our website.
The Hill Boulder website.
The Hill Boulder website, yeah. With what they're able to see when they're on the street. Other than that, we have been working with the chamber on getting EcoPass info pushed out. Both trying to encourage employees to advocate their employers to become a part of it, as well as trying to connect with the businesses to get them to come on to it. So that's been cool. Chamber's been super helpful in getting us media and everything and post up. Additionally, I'm sure many of you are dialed in with the DEA. We've been working on that. Previous week helped host the big open house. I think it went well. I think I haven't had a chance to touch base with the folks from downtown, but I think business owners, particularly on Pearl, seem a little hesitant. And the feeling that I've gotten talking to them and emailing is just some ongoing, the frustrations of conditions on the street, homelessness, graffiti, just stuff like that they're nervous about starting a whole new thing, and with council's interest in having a hand in it, that it'll just be co-opted and not go as planned. Has been the concerns shared with me. My feeling is that it's not an either or situation. It's where, yes, these are going to be continual issues that are going to be faced, and the DDA is a great opportunity to build on things. And I feel like on the Hill, we've seen great benefit from, the Moxie project going through and capital improvements making a real impact in our business district. So that's been, as a business owner and from the Hills standpoint, I still think the DDA would be super beneficial. But would love to hear feedback from you all if you have different ideas or.
Do you have feedback from the Hill businesses in particular regarding DDA?
Other than from the Sink and the Corner, no, they're both in support, and the Fox.
Yeah.
But have not heard otherwise. And at the open house, didn't see folks show up or really a level of engagement yet.
So who's in charge of the Hill right now?
Me.
Okay, so it's you, so it's no longer Jake.
Yeah, Jake is, he's not really at all. With our limited budget, it's now going to Brandon B. Jake was away on medical leave. We worked with the Brandon B, brought them on to do marketing. That's our monthly budget. And so they're doing a better job. You know what I mean? Jake wasn't focused just on that. He was taking care of a lot of like the admin stuff as well. It's, the $800 a month or whatever is going towards social media. It's very successful. We're having great, whatever, like content and interactions, and it's keeping it alive online. Jake is on hand to help us update the website as needed. He put a lot of years into it. He's not going to step away. It's just, we don't have the ability to pay him for the help. Karen, does our books, which she does, for I think quite minimal for the amount of work to keep a nonprofit going. I can do it on a volunteer basis as well. It is still our hope that when the DDA forms, we'll have the ability to partner with Downtown Boulder and pool some resources and get more on the same page. We've been working pretty closely with Tammy and Terry to coordinate that. And, you know, I believe that in good faith, we'll be able to move forward as a, you know, combined effort and tap into some of the resources that they have as a larger organization. But yeah, we're just,
So then the dreaded question, what happens if the DDA does not go through?
yeah, then it continues.
We have to come up with a new way to finance ourselves, is that correct? Right?
Yeah, if we want it to,
Because currently we're just, the P and L just keeps shrinking each year, so
the P&L
like the profit and loss statements from
For you, Jim.
for UGID.
for you did. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I imagine that supporting Hill Boulders closer to the cut line than not. Yeah, so any heads up on that timeline, like if it's not going to renew for 2027, I'm, you know, understood. And as much notice to that happening or not would be, I think, super helpful in being able to get ahead of that transition. You know, I think the website hosting, you know, and there's a couple other, you know, like that kind of digital hosting stuff, and Karen's work as a CPA are the only fixed costs. You know, we can lose the insurance if we're not really actively, you know, helping host events and things like that. We can exist. I don't know to what benefit. I mean, we get thousands of views and, you know, a month and traffic, and it's clearly some folks are using it as a what's happening in our district. Perhaps it's redundant on businesses' own social media, and it would still, you know, I don't know.
What is?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, no, just kind of.
I know we're gonna talk about the DDA, so this maybe that's a pretty big agenda item, so, and I heard that once, like the Moxie example was used to, like, I wasn't at this meeting, so I think I heard from maybe it was Cheryl or somebody who said, oh, it really rang home once they saw what that tax increment maybe showed what could have happened with if we had done this like 2 years ago. I don't know exactly what the, but there was like a real life.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, this is-
We
Yeah,
showed impacts to the general fund, and we showed sales taxes and property tax from 2019 to 2025, and you can see there's a bit of a spike on the hill after the Moxie was developed.
Yeah.
so that was like what
Yeah.
really hit home for like, you know, like this has real economic, that project
Yeah.
had an economic impact. I know maybe we can talk about that later, but I was wondering, like, how does Visit Boulder fit in with all of this? Because they get a pretty big budget from hotel tax, right? And there's two really big hotels on the hill. I know one's not in the district, but is there a funding, like, is Visit Boulder
So
helping fund this, I mean, the hill?
yeah, no. And I was provided an email introduction from Terry to, I forget, a contact at Visit Boulder, and I haven't had luck getting a response.
I think that's
Okay.
the obvious connection, because we didn't have that a few years ago, and now, I mean,
Yeah, and when Kim last time spoke, Charlene was also speaking. And she expressed at that point that she really wanted to help the Hill.
And Charlene's with Visit Boulder.
Yeah, she,
Yeah,
okay,
she's the
yeah,
CEO.
and so I can, I'll be happy to continue to follow up with her, and I think she could bring some, I think she had a huge interest in helping,
Yeah,
because obviously the Hill is a big piece of it, especially with the limelight and all the convention and stuff going on.
yeah,
It's an absolute, you know, it should happen.
Yeah.
In some way.
Is there an example of what helping is? Is it like paying for somebody?
No, there's money, yeah.
Right,
no,
right, right.
money,
But is there a
marketing.
dollar that's attached to that? Like from past experience, is it, I can pay somebody full time to help promote the hill
Right.
and kind of lead the hill?
I don't,
Is it like that?
I don't think there's a hill person or it's more.
No, I know, but remember
citywide.
when we had Sarah?
Yeah,
Right.
Oh, no, for
right,
sure.
right, and
but that was a city position. That wasn't a visit boulder
That was-
position. And I believe the funding right now that you receive comes from the city. Is that-
Yes.
Yeah, it's directly from the city. So we're not the ones that would be deciding whether you get that or not. It feels like that's something that, at least from our perspective, it's vital. I mean, the city's made the hill less and less of a, in years past, and maybe not so much now. It seems like there's a resurgence of it in interest, but without that, I mean, it's just another step away from being vibrant. So we'll advocate for that
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine, that we would ever say that should go away. In fact, there needs to be additional resources for sure. But
Yeah, that would
because
be-
it's kind of dying on the vine in certain aspects. I mean, there's certain things, the restaurant leases and that stuff's great, but there's a lot of vacancy still. There's not a lot going on. Like you were saying, 4th of July was dead. Like it was literally dead.
yeah, you just look, we look at the event calendar, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Not a single event. And the city of Boulder already spent a buttload of money on that particular space right next to the sink that we've thrown many events out there
Yeah.
before. Just feels like we need somebody here quickly to lead the way, get paid to do it full time,
Yeah, I think,
unfortunately.
Sarah was successful in getting that rolling, and then Jake for a while was successful
Right.
as well. And then the budget just, 10 hours a month, you can only do so much. And I agree. I think, the Hill Boulder still being a nonprofit, we have a lot of tools we can use to help groups host events. We have a lot of pieces still in place from when we were that can kind of make it turnkey. We have a great social media and marketing reach, which we're keeping up on. But I think just to be transparent, getting someone on staff or the ability to bring them on is necessary to get back into the positive of producing and creating the environment that.
So for me,
That's what we do our letter to council, right? And when's July, did we already,
Yeah, it'll be
Next
in
January.
January, February, somewhere there.
I mean, that's a long ways away, but like last year we wrote our letter to council. We kind of just were like, hey, listen to us. Like, I felt like it was kind of like, maybe we come up with a more strategic.
Yeah.
Like we work with Visit Boulder, we work with the city staff, and maybe we can come up with something, because it does seem like this, like I think back to when I started working on those 2 projects, that's why I got involved on this commission. Like Sarah was the champion for the Hill, like,
That was the
And
position.
what? It was a
I think
full-time-
Originally, it was like Hill Revitalization Coordinator, something.
and she
like that.
crushed it. And
Yeah,
then
she-
now we're like, we are kind of dying on the vine, if we have 800, so, and I think we're all volunteers. So I think that is very important and then maybe we can move on after your comment, but what is the Moxie's like involvement, or Mr. Ozo's? Are they just not really involved with,
I mean,
like, cause
Mr. Oso they're great with connecting on social media. Like they have a team that gets like the Hill Boulders an easy way to get them in front of more people. And so they're always tagging and pushing content and here's this, put it out there.
that's good.
And so as far as a social media partner, they're great. I think that they've had a few management changes, which has made it a little more difficult, at least just as a small business level, to connect and try and find out who do I touch base with to like, can I invite some staff over for a walk, or can we get you guys involved? And just the Moxie, I think, business model without having a concierge or a front desk kind of makes it a little tricky.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, the restaurant group, you know, they're pretty sophisticated and get it, and I think are still working pretty hard to get the word out. The Moxie, I think, just being of that certain size and that concept is not so dialed in with the people on the ground.
I think one thing that could help in the short term, considering we are all volunteers, that we were doing those quarterly Hill
Yeah.
get-togethers.
Yeah,
And those stopped, I know.
That's true.
And those, it felt like there was a lot of momentum.
okay,
And I think, the Moxie hosted one, CU hosted some.
yeah,
And if there's a way to get those restarted,
okay,
that would be really helpful. And I think especially with the DDA coming up, considering a lot of people weren't down here. I mean, 10% probably of the voters in the DDA are in the district.
yeah,
And so if we could, and we could probably get the Puma people are, I don't know, do they charge money when they come and give us presentations?
Yeah, it's all part of the,
So do they charge additional money? When they get, like if we were to have them come and give, or you or whomever, I don't even know, but to come and advocate for the DDA.
Do you want to maybe do it at
Do
the
it-
Moxie?
do it on the Hill.
Yeah.
And
I
do it
just
on,
want to caveat that the city nor Puma, so we're paying them.
Yeah.
Can advocate if this gets on the ballot. So
I'm saying before that.
before.
or give a
To
presentation.
do an informational
Do it as,
session, but
kind
do
of
it
as soon
on
as possible,
Yeah.
just to sort of talk it through and answer questions and build support. And I know there
Bring
was,
CU to
there was
the
one down
meeting
here. Yeah, no, for sure.
Through and kind of
I
like,
think that'd be so helpful to get everybody in one room at one time and just those sessions. I went to every single one of them, and they were super beneficial.
Okay,
These are just sessions that are like for all the business owners.
It's just all the business owners come together
Yeah,
and there's just a light agenda and you just talk through almost like what we do here, but it gives people an opportunity to know what's going on, to know what vacancies are up. It's literally what we do here.
yeah, there's like snacks and drinks and.
Yeah. I mean, you guys
so
have
are
got
you
snacks.
talking about a DDA
Yeah, no,
forum? Or are you talking about a quarter?
I'm talking about reinstate the quarterly form and maybe the first one could also be
Focus on the DDA.
focus on the DDA for information session. But those, even if they were biannual, I don't know, but
Yeah.
better than none.
Yeah.
Because I don't think since you've been part of this commission that we've
I've been to a couple, they were at the
we've had.
wellness.
There was one at the Crown. Oh, that's right. Okay, I wasn't sure if you were.
But I also don't really remember, I've
Yeah.
been doing this before, I was
Oh,
on.
totally. That's right. So anyway, super helpful.
Sure. Do you have a time frame you wanna? I mean, council,
Yeah, you probably want.
Listens.
Next
Late July, ideally,
Before it gets
early-
referred to.
early August at the latest.
That's the only way the timing would work to build some support.
okay,
Well, for the city to be involved or Puma, then
Yeah.
after that, it would be up to us. or-
Yeah.
But I don't know, can we, as a
We
commission,
can.
are we
Not-
considered city?
You can act individually.
if it's a Hill Boulder, if the Hill Boulder hosts a meet and greet,
Yeah, that's fine,
they're allowed to show up
for sure.
as interested individuals.
Can only two of us show? What's
Yeah, that was gonna be my
All of you
question.
can show up as long as you're not saying,
I'm
we
here as
as
you
you
can't
can't see will be.
I'm here
doing
as Trent
something.
Bush.
Okay, got it.
Or you can't see hosts.
I can never.
One quick question. I know we're approaching back to school. Does CU ever help sponsor any events on the Hill? Like around back to school or even the first few weeks of back to school, partly to get the students out spending money on the Hill in the businesses?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
They've done it a number of different ways. I just got an email the other day. I can forward that. I don't remember exactly what it said, but yeah, they do try and help. And get the businesses on the
It's
CU.
anniversary too. I'm looking at Lori's email. I don't know if that's the email you're looking.
I think so, yeah.
I
So
think
that's a
in the
big deal.
past, they've usually been held on their parking lot
Mhm.
on the southeast corner of 13th in Pennsylvania, and it's
Okay.
been, I mean, it's open to the public, but it's been a pretty insulary event in that it's their space. They program it and it's, you know, it's pretty focused. But it still activates the area. I wouldn't,
Didn't we do a run of couple of years on Moving Week where we had concerts over there as well?
There, at one point, I
the
think the
Roots
Fox
Music
was,
Festival.
before that,
They
even.
did
Fox
it
was-
twice out there.
They did
2 years in a
yeah,
row.
no, exactly.
That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, CU has sort of chosen downtown as their place to do things, you know, which is.
Yeah, homecoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just all the, and it's cool that they do the night before the games and all that stuff down here in the Stampede and all that, but there is nothing that happens on that. So that's another opportunity. So when we do those quarterly,
Yeah.
we should try to get Lori and whoever to show up and discuss some.
Yeah.
Ideas and possibilities.
And sorry to like keep this going and all, but I brought this up for a reason, whether we have the DDA or not. We're gonna have to figure out a way to get somebody full-time to make this so much easier, right? Instead of us trying to talk to CU and then talk to this person, we got one person taking care of it all.
Yeah.
I just lived it with Sarah before and it was fantastic. And we just miss it. We need to figure out a way to fund it no matter what.
Sarah was the revitalization.
That's what I-
coordinator. When was she on staff?
She was in the city back, probably like 2012 through 2018. like
Was
something
it
like that.
2018? Was that long ago?
Wow.
Yeah,
No,
It was like right at COVID, I think.
yeah, I think it was right before.
yeah.
But she had gone like halftime, right?
And there was a,
Right, yeah.
yeah, and then her job so when I started with the city, I started to work with Sarah. So she was originally Hill and then her job expanded and it was Hill and other stuff. I think for a variety of reasons, the funding being probably one of the big reasons that job morphed and, kind of got absorbed into everything else. I also think there was a, conversation going back years now, a decade or more of like specific attention to the Hill that got a lot of attention that led to some of that, broader revitalization efforts that some of you may have some of the history on as well. So I think, go ahead.
Well, that might be another person to talk to. I mean, I know she left the Boulder or Denver downtown. She lives in Boulder and I
Yeah.
think she's consulting, so she might be, like maybe, I don't know, I'd be happy to reach out to her and just tell her where we're at. I mean, I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah, and I think a DDA, if it does go forward, it is one of the things that it could take on. I think it'd be a good conversation with DDP to see if there's some kind of areas that are in common there. But yeah, I think it's something in terms of like activation and thinking about events and
Yeah,
stuff like
well,
that.
even
It's on the table.
if we're able to connect and you wouldn't mind reaching out to visit Boulder.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, just with Jake being still so well versed and, kind of passed on from Sarah and dialed in, if we were able to bring him on part-time, or as 10 hours a week now without having to worry about any of the social media stuff, because that's rocking and rolling and they're handling it and it's kind of its own separate piece. And he would easily be able to handle a quarterly meeting, website, and newsletters for 10 hours a month.
Okay.
So that I think is an exciting idea. And I know he expressed like, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, but
oh, that's good to know.
working for free.
Right.
Got rent to pay.
Awesome. I was thinking of her.
No, thank you all so much.
I guess one other thing, if we do put together that kind of get together,
Yeah.
we should have some sort of a Sundance update also for the Hill businesses. Because I don't know, there again, so much of the activity and excitement's downtown, but a lot of the venues are up there, right?
Yeah.
More up there than down here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if people have made the connections, or if there's opportunity like there is down here, for business. But that'd be a good thing that's something we could talk to Charlie about too. So if there's somebody there that can,
Cheryl.
isn't that what Chris is doing now? Yeah, so.
August 7th is,
It's getting close to moving.
or no, I thought August 7th is their hearing, right?
August 6th.
6th, sorry, is council. So, I mean, do we have it after so we know if it's worth talking about the DDA or not?
It's up to you.
All right, I guess,
I think you should do it before, and then it'd be great if we get support that those people would write letters.
yes, okay.
Sort of
So.
combined letter as the, to council.
Super. I am away to, or July 27th to August 3rd. We could certainly do something that week of the 20th. That's a week away. 2 weeks, which, I mean, maybe that's fine, like, right, either people are gonna be around and come or not, but
Right.
maybe coordinating speakers and presenters would be the crux, but if you guys would like, I'm happy to jump on that and work together a summer meeting.
Be cool.
Do any of you? Okay, so we'll just shoot for that Thursday, the 23rd. I know is the dining out for Ukraine, which a lot of the restaurants participate citywide, so maybe not Thursday, but
Wednesday or Friday.
yeah, maybe Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll shoot for Wednesday.
It's my birthday, but.
Oh.
Okay, what better way to
It's just, I think just plan it, and what I can help with, like, connecting people, and I think just picking a date is great. Does that work? Would the city be there to talk about?
Yeah, we'll figure. We'll
Okay.
get some.
Okay, great.
like happy hour, like 4
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Probably good.
4 to 5, and then people can mingle for half an hour if they
Yeah.
want.
Where are you offering to do it,
We certainly could.
or what? I don't want to suppose we're like putting a lot on you for coming.
I mean, that's the easiest for me to coordinate.
So bargain for at this meeting.
I know, it's a 5-minute update.
Yeah, my bad.
No,
No, we want to help.
Over here, right?
Yeah, no, we're on the same team, it's all good. Yeah, if there's not a better place, I mean, what do you think?
I don't have a location that's like Renee Crown, but I don't know.
I mean, do you think it'd be worth reaching out to the Limelight?
We reach out to them.
Yeah. I don't know why not. I mean, the Moxie did it. I don't know why they went.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would probably attract a lot of people to.
Yeah,
like,
no, for sure. It's just that they're not in the district, so I don't know. if
Yeah,
that's-
it's the new, shiny new rock on the block.
But yeah, and I think Lori calls very supportive of this. I mean, the university is a conference center as well, and they're not in the district, but I do think they've been part of the planning committee, right?
Yeah, and they've been
Just don't pay
engaged
pretty
with it.
taxes.
They did
Yeah.
business walkthroughs, I
I
think.
think it's good for everybody, like, without it, I mean, I think that's what Cheryl said to me, it's like, without the DDA, we don't have anything, where downtown Boulder still has probably still some legs to stand on, so I think it is important.
Okay. Wednesday, the 22nd.
It's my 35th birthday.
That's
But
Okay?
It's a big one.
I know. All right,
Thanks, Dakota.
thank you, Dakota.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up with you guys.
I don't know if you can email us all together, I
I
don't,
can
right?
email commissioners, right? Or I can email.
You can email.
Melissa could probably
We
send it
can't
out.
respond to each other all
Okay.
together.
Okay, well, I guess,
If it's about a forum here.
yeah, let me know if you guys hear
The venue?
the venue.
Yes.
Let me know.
Cool.
If not,
Yeah.
A on at 4. And you guys will make an introduction to Visit Boulder and CC me, just try and get back on them. And yeah, we'll promote it. We'll try and get our marketing team there so they can do a presentation and share all the exciting moves they're making. And the city can provide a DDA informational update, and then maybe one or two people can talk about why it's awesome and we need it. And the Limelight will provide some stats hopefully too.
Right now. What was it? It's
Wednesday, the 22nd at 4 p.m.
I got the Mox involved too, just in case.
Okay.
We just did that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
With Keith.
Love that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dakota.
Thank you
very much.
Let's move on to talking about the DDA, so,
All right, thanks everyone.
and the civic area book.
Good afternoon.
Through this quick. We'll talk about the DDA. Okay. Boulder Creek Park East Bookend Development Partnership. So Boulder Creek Park it was formerly the civic area in Central Park, now called Boulder Creek Park. So this is a Parks and Rec led effort. I'm presenting on behalf of our colleagues there, but our Office of Cultural and Economic Development has been involved in this work as well. So 3 things I'll cover: what the opportunity is, where it's headed, and next steps. So for context, we're talking about the east end of the civic area, now Boulder Creek Park, the block that's home to the Dushanbe Tea House, the Boulder County Farmers Market, right on Boulder Creek, a couple blocks from Pearl Street and not too far from campus. This is a bit of a closer up. So the scope area is outlined by the yellow dotted line on the right-hand side. The city is seeking a development partner or a team of partners to redevelop city-owned properties in the East Bookend, either through purchase or lease agreements. There's also potential opportunity on some of the other city properties nearby, such as the West Bookend on the right-hand side. The East Bookend's on the left-hand side. But the East Bookend is really the main focus for this project. So why is the city pursuing a public-private partnership? There are several reasons outlined here. It's a way to achieve the community's vision through programming, activation, community benefits that people have asked for. It leverages the city's existing investments, assets, and authorities. It attracts private capital and creativity that the city may not be able to achieve on its own. It reduces the city's facility management burden, and it generates revenue that supports both near and long-term goals. So in summary, the city brings public tools and really leads the park and public space investment. And then the private partner kind of comes in, builds, invests, operates things like a year-round food market with the farmers market, potentially housing and lodging, potentially commercial uses. This diagram captures what the East Bookend is intended to become: a food, recreation, and arts and culture hub that really stitches together the reimagined civic area park, the Creek Path, Pearl Street, downtown, and important to this room, the new conference center at CU and the Hill commercial area. So what's actually on site today? We have 3 landmarked buildings there: the tea house, the atrium, and the storage and transfer building. So the development opportunity is really about the city-owned surface parking lots and the operations building. It's kind of small there. But those could be redeveloped to introduce new uses, new activity, and there may be negotiations with a few private property owners in the area as well. This is really the vision on one slide. A vibrant, food-oriented destination anchored by an enhanced Boulder County Farmers Market presence, all adjacent to the Phase 2 park enhancements. New uses that create 24/7 year-round activity and support cultural events, a mix of public, semi-public, and private spaces, residential, arts, commercial, retail, really a celebration of the area's history and the landmarked buildings. And again, a strengthened connection between downtown, the Hill, CU, etc. So quick recap of the process to date. There was an initial public forum in October 2025. The city released a request for expressions of interest in February of this year. The RFI was really a market test, kind of gauging interest and asking potential partners for input on key questions before committing to a formal RFP process. And the result from that, we received 9 responses, a mix of full development teams, some individual organizations. So those responses, along with stakeholder input, are really informing the RFP now. Some key takeaways from the RFI. First, there's strong market interest in exactly what the community has envisioned. So a mixed use civic destination with cultural programming, gathering spaces, food and hospitality, year-round activity. Second, respondents support partnership models where private investment delivers public benefits while the city still retains some long-term stewardship. Third, the feedback emphasized things that the community really cares about: connections to the park and downtown, adaptive reuse of the historic buildings, expanded arts and events, and the farmers market really is a centerpiece here. And fourth, teams asked the city to be more specific in the RFP, so be more specific about the vision, the partnership roles, the process. So that's all shaping the RFP now. Okay, where are we headed? Target release for that request for proposals is late summer 2026, so really right around the corner. It will seek a developer partner for the east bookend with the west bookend as an option. And again, the Boulder County Farmers Market is a core partner in this effort, and this is a multi-departmental push across the city. And the timeline on this slide runs out through 2029 and beyond. So looking a bit further out, late 2027, the concept plan review process will really be an opportunity to come back and update boards such as this on the progress. Site review is tentatively slated for 2028. And in between, the project webpage is really the best place to follow along. I'll make sure that link gets circulated to you all. That's it on this bookend.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just so if they're going to redevelop all the parking, is there going to be parking
There
component?
will be a parking requirement, I imagine, right, Mark? Or
Yeah, so the interesting thing about downtown is that, and with some of the new code changes recently, there wouldn't be a parking requirement per se. But yeah, I think there's a city interest in making sure that we can accommodate users of whatever's there on that site, and also the civic area. I mean, putting money into the park, we want people to be able to get down here. Whether that's privately developed or that's publicly developed, it remains to be seen. I think we want to kind of see what the market will support, and go from there. But I think there will have to be some degree of parking structure.
What's the build Park Central and New Britain, are those gonna come down? And how is that getting paid for? Is it out of this deal? Do you think that's? I know those have been having to come down for many years because they're in the high hazard floodplain.
It's not contingent on the sale of anything in East Bookend. I mean, the city needs to sell some of these buildings of some type of significant profit so that we can pay for other
You think you can sell the
projects.
buildings in the high hazard floodplain?
Not those.
Okay.
I'm talking about West Book and East Book, and the combination of
Yeah.
the two should generate some value for the city, so we can put that back into other buildings in some format. But we are budgeting for the tear down of those two buildings. That timing is a little bit TBD, but the earliest that would be is 2028, after city staff moves out and up to the new facility.
I heard at one point you were gonna try and sell them, and I was like,
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Yeah.
But why not?
Mhm.
You're talking about these
That's
ones
a-
where Mustard's last
they're
name.
the
Yeah.
high hazard floodplain, and they're basically, they will fall into disrepair, like, you can't put improvements, you can't keep improving them because of
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
okay.
floodplain. And so you can only keep putting like 50% of their value in, and that's why they start to, they're, the ultimate goal is for them to not be there, because they're a hazard.
But could you like sell the land and then the develop, or market rate developer comes in and like
It's to flood.
they can't mitigate it in any way, okay?
Not on site. I mean,
So where will it be? Just a lot? Park, oh, park, yeah.
So those will be a park.
Yeah.
I think this area can be mitigated to, because it's more in the 100-year floodplain.
Yes,
But this is like the belly of the beast right here, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
for Boulder
Yeah.
Creek.
Actually, I think we're okay in like half of this building, but
And this building has.
You guys are okay, right?
Well, it has floodgates. If you look at, when you go outside, it's kind of interesting.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that there's a floodgate here and over there, right? Right, any other questions?
So just that before, well, so do you mind just put up the map one again?
Yeah.
So this is this the phase one area here where we're sitting? That's phase two?
Yes.
Okay, and is phase, when we talked about it, when it was just all one big thing before, the connectivity to the hill was
The Arboretum.
the arboretum and that whole thing, I saw it briefly on the map, that, is that part of phase two, or is that a totally?
Parks.
yeah, so the Arboretum path specifically is not.
No.
$18 million is about the budget for phase two. That only goes so far, so that'll get most of the infrastructure within kind of everything within the park area here.
Yeah.
Some of the changes to the fan shell seating, ideally kind of covering the ditch and creating more green open space, doing some infrastructure improvements for 13th Street, that type of stuff. Once you get through that list, that's pretty much $18 million.
Yeah.
And so, Arboretum is one where what the team is doing is actually taking that concept to a level of design that it's a little bit more ready for development, and then trying to attract partners, perhaps a DEA partnered project in the future. So trying to get it closer, but it won't be a part of the city only funding.
And then, so in the planning process then, if that's the case, do we know, is there any opportunity or possibility of wayfinding towards the hill as part of, I mean, it's a block away, right? Or a block and a half away.
Yeah.
It seems like a great opportunity to kind of talk about all the parts of Boulder, and
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
considering people will be walking down from conferences too,
Mhm.
to get them back, it probably makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, because that was one of the issues we had with like the Moxie and the Limelight, like they were just individual projects, and like we talked a lot about, connecting the place and connecting the hill with downtown, and creating unified signs and saying it's a 10-minute walk to Pearl Street, or 15-minute bus to Chautauqua, and we just, those two projects alone couldn't like do it because they were just confined within their lot lines.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in the RFP, you could ask for more comprehensive wayfinding, because if that can't be budgeted in the 18 million, or we have to wait for that park project, maybe that, I don't know if that's gonna come after or before this, but I like the idea of like having that as in the RFP,
Yeah.
like,
I'll relay that to
I don't know if that's
the
possible.
Yeah, so it'd be really
Good
nice to-
feedback. Yeah.
And we can check with the parks team on if there's an opportunity to incorporate some of that signage in our project.
Or even some of the basics of like lighting and some safety, I don't know, just some of the
I know
basics.
some of that stuff will be, and then some of the like broader civic area stuff we've also talked about is keep saying DDA as a bit.
Yeah.
Solve all of our problems, but yes, I mean, on the list of like wayfinding, permanent signage,
Yeah.
wayfinding, some of the lighting, improvements, so.
I mean, this is gonna happen regardless of the DDA.
Correct,
So-
yeah,
Let's plan with the DDA or contingency that the DDA is not going to happen, that this is going to happen 2029. So that's before we'd be getting any benefit of the DDA anyway, so planning wayfinding would be important now.
We potentially.
I'm really happy to see the,
DDA was. Go ahead.
I'm really happy to see the farmer's market as a key anchor.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
really important for the vitality of this whole project and the area, so.
When did that playground go up?
Oh, I have-
Just to the east of the band shell.
it was the last summer, I think.
It's almost a year, I think, or maybe.
Okay, it was freaking packed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people love
it
that.
was
Absolutely
major.
packed.
It was
Yeah.
brilliant placement, you know, that was really good.
Ally Rhodes, our parks director, always likes to point out that it cost 1/10 of what a regular playground would cost.
Yeah.
Really?
Like $4,000, or am I making that number?
Yeah, it's not much, yeah.
Cool.
Cool, really cool.
Now to the answer to all of our problems. I will mention as you start, Regan, so as we've alluded to, we do have a council public hearing coming up on all ballot measures that will be potentially referred to the ballot in November. That is on August 6th. So this is your last official meeting before that. So we thought it would be helpful for you to get an update since our last meeting of where we're at on a couple of specific pieces that Regan will take you through. But also probably useful for you all to make a formal recommendation to council, so we have it as part of the record, so ask that question as well.
Suggested motion language for you all. So I'll get there, but I'll start with just moving through the background quickly. You're all pretty familiar at this point. I'll focus on some of the things that are a bit newer, the letter of intent, what next steps look like for the election. And then we'll get to that motion language that I'm asking you to consider today. So as a quick refresher, what is a DDA? Why is Boulder considering it now? A DDA is a state authorized public entity focused on the long-term economic vitality of a defined district. It has its own board, its own dedicated funding stream, but it works closely in partnership with the city. DDAs are designed to make catalytic investments, redevelopment, infrastructure, public spaces, things that really encourage private investment, kind of spark that economic growth. But they can also fund things like business support, events, mobility, parking management, enhanced maintenance, safety, cleanliness, beautification. It's a really flexible tool in that way. And the reason we're exploring this now really comes down to some trends that I will show in the next few slides that were also shown at the public info session we held a couple weeks ago. But first, this is just a reminder of the proposed DDA boundaries. So again, it includes downtown, the Hill, the civic area, the connections between. And then we're also proposing the flagpoling up North Broadway towards Alpine Balsam and along East Pearl towards Balsam to really preserve future redevelopment opportunity should property owners decide to annex in the future if they're adjacent to those flagpoles. So this is some of the data that we showed at the public info session. This is inflation adjusted sales tax revenue in CAGID from 2019 through last year. And what this really tells us in summary is that downtown has not recovered since the pandemic. In adjusted dollars, 2025 came in about 10% below 2019. So that's 6 years, and the district really hasn't clawed its way back to where it was. Property values in the downtown area tell an even more concerning story. Inflation adjusted valuations are down about 19% from 2019. That can really be reflected in the ongoing office vacancies that we're seeing, slower reinvestment since the pandemic. Looking at UGID now, so the Hill also experienced a pretty significant decline. But unlike downtown, we are starting to see some recovery on the Hill. In 2025, sales tax revenues actually exceeded 2019 levels in inflation adjusted dollars. Same is true for property values. After several years of decline, 2025 is showing or showed some meaningful growth. And that can really be attributed to some of the new investment on the Hill that we were talking about earlier. Kind of tying it all together, this really matters because downtown and the Hill are major contributors to the city's general fund. When these districts struggle, it can really impact citywide services. So the goal of the DDA is to reverse these trends through that strategic investment. As you can see on the screen here, our downtown area has been a bit of a drag on the general fund. But we do see that positive spike on the Hill in 2025 and sales taxes, again, can be attributed to some of that new investment. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have questions. If voters establish a DDA, what would it actually do? That's where the plan of development comes into play. So just a quick recap of what is the plan of development. It's required by state statute. It serves as the DDA's long-term policy framework. It establishes the investment priorities, the geographic boundary of the DDA. It is not a list of specific projects. It provides flexibility over a 30-year period while allowing amendments over time. And importantly, council continues to approve both the plan and the DDA's annual budget, so there is city oversight built in. The plan organizes community priorities into 5 investment areas, from redevelopment, small business support, public spaces, better connections between downtown and the Hill. As many of you know, none of these ideas are new. What's new is really having this dedicated funding tool to actually implement these long-standing community priorities. Quick recap of the funding strategy. So the proposed DDA would have 3 primary funding sources. First is tax increment financing, also known as TIF. So this is not a new tax. It captures future growth above today's tax base and reinvests that growth back into the district. Second is a new tax. It's the property mill levy. The intent is to it just got really quiet in here. The intent is to replace the existing CAGID and UGID mill levies with one unified DDA mill levy using the current CAGID rate. So that would not be a new net property tax for those in CAGID. UGID property owners would see a modest increase, and anyone outside those 2 districts would see that mill levy applied. And then the third is the existing parking system. So the parking assets, they already support themselves financially, but under a DDA, they could be better coordinated with redevelopment and investment priorities. So altogether, these strategies really create stable operating funding for the DDA immediately and over time. So how do we make sure the city and the DDA stay aligned? That is where the letter of intent comes into play. So the letter of intent is really about setting expectations before the election. Because the DDA doesn't yet exist, we don't have a DDA board. The city can't negotiate a formal binding intergovernmental agreement with it. So we're calling this the letter of intent. It's supposed to serve as sort of a non-binding framework that outlines the city's intent for that future partnership. So it addresses several key topics, including the organizational transition, how TIF revenue sharing would be coordinated. So if the DDA is wildly successful, how does it share that growth in the future? The transition of the parking assets with continued alignment with city parking and transportation policies. And then just ongoing oversight through governance, reporting, annual budget approval, and amendments to the plan of development. I do want to highlight a couple of items that I think are important to this commission. So throughout this process, the planning group has been really intentional about ensuring University Hill continues to have a meaningful voice if the DDA passes. And so that's reflected in the discussion around initial board appointments with a real emphasis on geographic representation. The idea is the planning group would recommend that initial board to city council to appoint. And likewise, while the letter of intent outlines a framework for transitioning the existing parking assets, it doesn't make the operational decisions today. KMC will continue to be involved in future conversations about University Hill parking assets, policies, and priorities as those details are developed further, which we're anticipating will be more concretely developed during the transition period. And in terms of the timeline, so staff is working on this letter of intent right now. I just wanted to make you all aware of it. We're planning on sharing it with the planning group this week. So you'll have representation on that group and we'll have an opportunity to provide input. So that'll be shared with that group this week and council as well. Okay, quick overview of the election. So importantly, I mentioned this earlier, but the city and the city consultants team, so PUMA, cannot advocate for or against the ballot measure. We can provide factual information, give neutral advice, provide logistical support. That's about the extent of the support we can provide if this gets on the ballot. And what history shows is that successful DDAs, the campaigns are community-led. So a coordinating committee, volunteers, door knocking, info sessions. If this moves forward, that leadership really needs to come from the district. So from business owners, property owners, folks like yourselves acting in your individual capacities. Who votes? This is different from a normal election. Eligible electors are people registered to vote in Colorado who own property, lease property, or live within the proposed boundary. Residents who are registered voters get a ballot automatically, but entities, businesses, LLCs that own property have to submit a form designating a registered voter to cast their vote, and they have to request a ballot. So that is an extra step, and those leading the campaign will really need to help spread the word on that. But the consultant team in the city, we're building ballot request forms and kind of an FAQ package to make that as easy as possible before the election. So 3 separate questions on the ballot for electors inside the boundary. Question 1 is to form the DDA. It creates the authority and the boundary. Question 2 is to authorize the use of tax increment financing. It lets the DDA capture growth above the base year. And then question 3 is the mill levy. So 3.674 mills is the current CAGID rate, structured to replace the existing CAGID and UGID levies under that one district structure. Here's the full timeline at a glance. So council puts the questions on the ballot, the community campaigns, the electors vote. If it passes, council appoints the DDA board, approves the plan of development, and remember, no projects and no TIF funding is collected until that plan is adopted and approved by council. And then it's annual operating plans and budgets from there. All right, so as we mentioned, we think it's important that you all consider making a formal recommendation to council. I think it would really help inform their decision as to whether to place this on the ballot, but happy to answer any questions before that.
It's a great presentation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, this hits nicely.
Could you pull the map up one more time?
Mhm.
You have a question, Ben?
I was like, do you have a sense of how many residents there are, the percentage of like voters that are residents within the boundary versus the business owners?
That's a great question. I do have that data. I can pull it up quickly. Just give me one moment.
Another important, I'm gonna follow up is that, is the amount of tenants, because I think that is a really, they get to vote, and
Mhm.
so that is probably a very important part of this
Yeah, so there's a
election.
total-
If they get like wild out to vote against it, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting, they don't get a ballot, they have to ask for one, so I feel like I don't know how much of that is, it's probably bigger downtown than on the hill, but I know we saw those numbers at one point.
yep. So the estimates that Puma provided us with, the total number of eligible electors is 2,275. 559 of those are residents. 536 are property owners, and a little over 1,100 are lessees. So about half are lessees.
Wow, okay.
Interesting.
What Puma's guidance has been is that if there are about 500 yes votes, then you probably have enough. Just based on typical turnouts for these types of things. One thing that we've been talking about is some type of like informational mailer. What is a DDA? How does this impact you for residents? Just because they haven't been as directly communicated with. So we're still thinking about that as well.
How many of those property owners are registered to vote in Colorado?
That's a good question.
Or, because I imagine the tenants are, and the property owners, like the residential owners are, but how many of the commercial property owners?
We could probably get that data from Puma. I don't know that I have it on hand.
I don't need, I think that you might have less property owners, I guess.
Right.
Because there's probably a lot out of state.
And if they can designate an elector,
Oh,
They just need to request a ballot and designate an elector.
okay,
the
Yeah.
elector must be
Be
a
registered.
Colorado registered voter,
okay.
but they can be an out-of-state owner and then designate somebody in state to vote.
And this is probably the campaign, we'll have to dig into this deeper as well.
Yeah.
And in how they approach it.
Yeah, we can help compile some information before then. The city can, but the campaign will really need to take the lead on that.
I'm on the planning committee, and I think when we first got assembled, we are expected to be carrying that work after it gets referred to the ballot with anybody else. But I think that was part of the planning committee has been meeting a lot and working really closely with Puma in the city. And I will say the planning committee is a very active group of people who I think have really helped shape this to be a bolder. I mean, the map alone was like a big debate. I think everyone's really pleased with how that turned out. And so it's been happening really fast as well. And sometimes it felt too fast to people, but it feels like it's in a really good place from where I sit.
So the map, that's the question I have, because at one point, being loosely associated with some of those meetings, the east portion of Pearl was just kind of added in the last.
Flagpole
It
instead
got
of,
flagpole, but it was, so is it just this,
it's just the
it's just the
street.
street, so it's not the buildings?
Yeah, which I think was a really
Yeah.
good, and we
Is that
heard
okay?
that happened in Denver. They like brought in all the right of ways, and then
Yeah, exactly.
people could see that it was a good thing and
Yeah.
vote in versus I think it would have hurt the election if we were
Well, that was.
bringing in all these properties in East Boulder and North Boulder who were like, what? You know, we
Yeah.
didn't.
Oh, okay, so it's, yeah, sorry, it is, and that's the same with Broadway.
Yep, initially we didn't have
Yeah.
properties included.
Yeah.
But based off great feedback from the planning group,
Yeah.
we revised that. We also had conversations with property owners in those areas and they were supportive of the flagpoling.
And remind me again why Boulder High is included.
Yeah, they're included. They are key stakeholder throughout this process. They would benefit from the investments made by the DDA. They'll be impacted. The property tax.
Mhm.
Their property taxes would be impacted, and so we thought including them would be a benefit.
There are examples of DDAs investing in like university related projects, school related projects. I don't know if early in the game that would be kind of top, but I think at Puma's advice, including them in the boundaries because their property tax collections are impacted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if they could see kind of a direct nexus to some investment around Boulder High, that could be beneficial.
Yeah, I've had no problem with it. I just wondered why.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a political move too.
Yeah, well, I understand that part of it too, for sure.
But is.
Which can cut both
you-
directions as long as
What?
they're, I said, that can cut both directions as long as they're supportive. Right,
Yeah, you need
but they could be allowed.
the school districts to not be fighting this.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What?
I think the verdict is out.
What is that? What's the verdict?
I'm not sure where they're at. We have some meetings coming up with,
And they don't
other
have a
taxing
seat,
entities.
are they, I know they got a seat, no, the school district, did they get a seat on borough?
So that's required by state statute. They have
For the DDA.
urban renewal
Oh.
authority, but not a DDA.
Yeah, we're certainly working with the other taxing entities, but it is a unique feature of a downtown development authority that you are not required to get approval from the other taxing entities.
The county.
The
does not
county,
have a seat.
the library district, the school district, and so, they have obviously interest in understanding how this could be beneficial and what the impact is, and those are ongoing conversations.
Yeah, we're having conversations with them.
My other suggestion, I guess, is that the presentations, everything's great, all the words are great, but having concrete examples of for columns. Here's before, here's after, that would speak volumes over all of the words if we're just trying to get people to
Mhm.
see the benefits. And I haven't seen in anything for the years now that we've been talking about this, I've never seen a concrete before and after sort of example. It just makes it easy, like hard hitting.
We actually just received some key examples from Puma and Peer DDA communities,
Oh.
really great slide decks, so we'll
Oh, cool.
incorporate that into.
That,
some
I
of
think that's super important.
Yeah,
Because we're all up to speed, but we've all been along for the ride for a long time. So
Dean, did you have a question or comment?
No, I think what I love about these slides is seeing the actual numbers. I even love the slide you have that shows the little bubbles with the transportation. I mean, they're just pictures, but it humanizes it to just somebody looking through this stuff. Doesn't make it feel so formal. Like, yeah, I love this. I mean, any resident can look at this and visualize beautiful Boulder, right? Love it.
I would support making a motion. Make a motion? Or as a
You're
chair?
allowed to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would make the suggested motion to recommend city council adopt an ordinance submitting to the qualified electors of the proposed district ballot measures necessary to establish the Boulder Downtown Development Authority and authorize its financing mechanisms. Second. Seconds. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Any comments? Additional comments?
does the motion then, do we,
What?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know.
It-
Who wants to say something?
No, you're good. No, you asked if we had any questions.
Oh, I have a little cue sheet here. Well, I think we passed it unanimously.
We did. Yep.
So, thank you. I really, really appreciate this slide deck is excellent.
Thank
I always appreciate you presenting, Regan. You do a
thanks,
very
good
good job.
job. Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question, just now that we approve the motion.
Yeah.
How does that get to city council?
Yeah, we'll have a section of the council memo on engagement activities, and we'll include the formal recommendations from UCAMC and DMC
Okay,
in that section. Regan's also going to visit Transportation Advisory Board. But interestingly, you all in DMC have it by your code provisions, a formal role in advising on downtown development authority. Which was interesting. Someone thought that at some point.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
anyway.
Power.
Would it be stronger if we wrote a
Letter?
letter too? That's,
Yeah, that's up to you all. I think in advance of August 6th, council would appreciate any additional information.
Did we write a letter on this recently? Was the letter that we wrote?
Planning group wrote a letter.
Oh, the planning group wrote a letter to the last city
Yeah.
council meeting, which we'll probably do again, I would guess. I would be in support of us sending a letter,
Agreed.
which is hard to, somebody has to draft it, probably.
I was gonna say.
Looking around. And then I send it to Melissa, or who do I send? I send it to somebody on staff so that you can send it individually to the board. Is that how it works? So I'm not.
How does that work? Do you know?
Yeah, we can do that. If you want to do a
Right, so
quick
because
draft,
I can't send it to the board.
you do a quick draft and send it to one of us.
Send it to Marker.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll circulate it and just ask if you have any changes. If you all give us just a thumbs up, then I think you can just send it on behalf of.
Okay.
You can't see.
I'm happy to help you if you need help drafting, if that's allowed.
Of course, I think two of us can work on it.
That's right.
All five of us can.
Yeah. But I'm happy to.
Awesome. Is that the step of business? We have commissioners vacancies on the Hill update. We already did, right? Or is there more?
303 is gone. The skateboard shop. We didn't talk.
Temporarily, right? They're,
I think they're bankrupt.
oh, I heard they were-
There's something in the window just saying remodel, but I don't think so. I think it's gone.
Are there more spaces going in the Moxie below? Or is that,
I saw that the
Space.
for lease sign was out of one of the windows,
okay,
but not the other.
You would know, right?
I don't know. I don't know anymore. There are more retail spaces that are available. I heard that there was some like kind of not flooding, but like water infiltration issue on one part of the building. So maybe that had to get repaired. But I know that the whole first floor, I think, was supposed to be retail space.
and the 7-Eleven, old 7-Eleven, that's leased, right?
I didn't hear it was leased. I know the for lease signs are still in
Oh, really? Okay.
as of yesterday.
Is that the old theater building?
Uh,
Is that Garrett's building?
yeah, so the 7-Eleven piece.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Prime Nutrition's, are they still operating, or that's the other place on the other side of Christopher.
Right. Well, yeah, I think, yeah, they were open last week.
Oh, they were open.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No, there was a policy decision a long time ago to limit residential on the Hill, I think, in the zoning. I don't remember all that. I don't know if at some point we would ever want to think about, not that we have control over this, but like, could there be more mixed use? Like, so that there was like an incentive to have residential above commercial? Because I believe there's a pretty strong limitation on residential. And, if you can subsidize some of the, the commercial rents on the ground floor and have residential, which is a more profitable,
There's a,
housing.
I know there's a. When we were doing the ULI TAP study number 6,000 of the Hill.
Bring 'em back.
Brad probably.
Yeah, have you seen that study?
Yeah, I haven't
Part of
looked
that?
at it.
I can't remember.
Probably, but.
Yeah, but I think there's a need for affordable housing. There's some stipulation that makes it not viable.
I don't know. I'll go back and look at it. I just know, like, when we keep talking about economic, activity and how, we have to figure out how to, sometimes you have to subsidize some of this commercial through other uses. And if you can't do residential, and I'm not saying build it all in student housing, but if you could convert that. And I know, and that was a move to, I think, support the Hill a long time ago, by keeping residential off of it, but I'm not sure that strategy is totally
A
working.
lot, I was just looking at the proposed land use map for the new comprehensive plan. And most of that area is actually regional hub.
Regional hub.
And then the pockets around it are neighborhood too. So, I mean, the land use map will allow for a lot more.
So there's some like something got put in the code to stop. So I don't know if this is interesting to me. I don't know if it's like maybe we can do a little research.
Yep. Mhm.
Is that something you guys could bring back to us at
Yeah,
some
we
point
could.
and kind of like give us the history of why that happened?
Mhm.
Because that might also help that economic, to fill those downtown. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, there's, Andrew Shoemaker and Cheryl
Yes.
are
Yeah.
super well versed in that.
And then you have more people living there
Mhm.
and that helps with some of the second issue on this list as well.
Yeah. Well, the other thing. That. And there's more information again in that tab.
I'll dig
Because
that up
they had-
and share it. Do you guys have that or do you, I probably have it.
I think we have it somewhere, but
I can,
yeah, if you.
I'll send it to you.
I'd love to see that. Yeah, but they had some interesting exclusions and kind of.
It's
But-
interesting because everything up, the two hotels happened for like over 20 years of planning. I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't just happen magically.
For sure.
And it's pretty cool to, I think that'd be interesting to revisit that, especially when we talk about catalytic projects and if the DDA passes. And maybe like zoning incentives or something might be part of that too.
Right.
Well, that's the 14th Street lot.
Exactly.
That the whole tap thing was around the 14th Street lot of
That's right.
what we could do. But there was no funding mechanism, right? But
Mhm.
now the DDA would be, that's one of the only places in Boulder that's saved for maybe the bookend thing. Is
Throw it in the RFP.
but it was just sitting there ready for something that was planned for redevelopment. So-
Yeah.
And that's what, the plan was to sell the Pleasant Street lot, right, and put that money aside. And some of it's still aside. Or is it all gone now? I don't know.
No, there's still.
There's still some, but not enough to do anything with a lot, but the DDA could change that and create some sort of anchor. Hill anchor.
Yeah, so that's our one asset, I guess.
Yeah, it's the one real asset.
It's one thing we still own
Mhm.
that we can leverage, so.
Yeah.
And so it's like 2.5, 3 million of fund balance in the University Health Fund. So I mean, those two things.
Is that much?
I think so. I'd have to look specifically, but
I
I mean, that's not a bad starting place.
No, it's
in
a
partnership with the DDA to be like, here, we want to prioritize these assets for this type of project going forward. I think it's a really good place to start for something like that.
Yeah, which is actually a question I forgot to ask. How do they allocate, we talked about leadership on the board, but how are you allocating money? Is it by population or property owners or like how collection, like how does the Hill get its share and how is that figured out?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just in the one fund. So it's up to the board. How to allocate those resources.
Does outline, it calls out the Hill as needing that representation, not just from the board, but with investments, and the DDA has to abide by the plan of development. But it would be up to the board to decide on specific projects.
And then if this all happens, this board gets dissolved and was that what happens?
This commission?
This commission, sorry.
Not right away. We'd have a little bit of time. I think we said I think we extended that to 1 to 3 year transition, but probably about a 2-year transition of standing up the DDA so that it can operate on its own. In that period of time is when we would be looking at kind of the committee structure. Is there any role of the GIDs or not? If there is not, then we would kind of go through the steps. I think there'd probably be still UCAMC meetings on how do we recommend, if we go ahead and move forward to transfer the ownership of the 14th Street lot to the DDA, what conditions would be on it? Yes, you all would have recommendations. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, as long as you're actually going to do the things that would. And
So
so,
we have some leverage, yeah.
right, so we would go through that process in 2027, and so it'd be sometime after that, but then we could potentially dissolve the GID.
So then real quick, related question, again, if the DDA weren't to go through
Mhm.
that money that is allocated to the hill. Is that something that this group has any power to suggest usage, or do we just kind of wait until the city wants money and takes? Sorry, I don't know how else to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, through the annual budget process, you all would have the ability to look at the budget proposal and then make a recommendation.
Make it.
And I think like we would be supporting you all in having a conversation of now what, right? If it does not move forward to the ballot.
Yeah. Because the hill needs some serious help.
Yeah.
And there's a pot of money and some of these things. I don't know how we could allocate it, but if we're looking to have somebody that's full-time on the hill, that could pay for somebody for a number of years to be full-time on the hill. So we do have ability to affect some change, but I don't know how much ability, so that's the
Yeah.
question. So.
Yeah, we'd cross that bridge with you if we had to.
Okay. But I think it's in all of us interest to get this TDA thing to go.
That's the
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other comments? I think the only thing left here was camping at the Fox entrance, which is something I brought up just because I had some feedback. I don't have a solution. It's just was an observation that I was carrying forward. Yeah. And that there was I sent you the sign. There was a sign that Cheryl had seen in Fort Collins that had cited some city ordinances that said like you just can't camp within like 30 feet of a building's entrance. And she was just wondering if we've ever talked about doing something like that because it's really hard for her to open her doors for a show and there's just people there.
I can let our safe and managed spaces team know. And they can,
I'm sure she talks.
yeah, hopefully, and if there are like camping, like directly reach out, because
Yeah.
we can send.
So
a
she
team
was
up
just
there.
seeing like,
Yeah.
again, maybe this is something, I know it's a sensitivity around camping but it's like, it's also business vitality, like to be able to allow people to enter and exit a building and feel safe. And so
Right.
she had, and if I didn't share that, did I share the sign example? Maybe I talked about it. She sent me a picture. I'll forward it to you. It just, and then it cites some city ordinances. I know that we think of Fort Collins as kind of a sister like city. And so that has helped support their businesses, especially at night time, that they might be open during the day. And so they become like, there's less activity happening. And then at night they need to open their doors and it's
Right.
harder to do.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else to make even stronger because if that happens downtown, it gets handled quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if there is someone camped out in front of their place and it is a situation that they don't want to deal with, I would call our non-emergency line.
Like it's literally every morning.
Yep.
Welfare check.
Yep.
And her observation was just she's been there a long time and
Yeah.
gotten worse. And she was kind of worried. It was just thinking she was correlating it to maybe some like more vacancies. Just feeling like this was just
Yeah.
like even though the Moxie's there, but there's a lack of economic like.
Definitely
business.
magnifies the vacancies.
Yeah.
Yep. And I can mention this to we actually have a team meeting on safe and managed public spaces tomorrow. So I'll mention it to the team because they do a lot of their operations within the civic area for obvious reasons, but they get around to other parts of the city. So
Is there anything you can do with so another problem there in particular is the Tulagi's building has power outlets that people are just plugging in extension, and that's another reason why people congregate there.
yeah,
It seems pretty logical that you take away that and it takes away a lot of the incentive to be camped out there. Is there anything the city can do to
we could
ask?
look at that. I think we've looked at that in different situations, and I know we deal with it around this building too. That our power structure isn't super great, so I think it shuts off a lot more than just that. But
I don't know. Can somebody go up with a screwdriver?
right. Yeah, I can.
People try to.
So I'm in sticking
seen
the
the phone.
I don't know, but
No,
it
I've
just
seen it, yeah.
it seems like it keeps it's a problem that continues.
It's public right of way. It's not
Yeah.
private property.
No,
So
sure.
I think she's has limited ability.
I know,
Private
'cause at her-
property, I think.
her
you
wit's
can do
end,
more.
yeah.
But,
She's at her wit's end on it because it's literally every day.
yeah, and with Sundance. So
Yeah.
have our venues be approachable. That's all, just, I'd love to finish this meeting early. Okay, does anyone have any, well. Everybody, okay? I don't know. I think it was a great meeting. Ben, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
was a
Or,
great-
I guess you were here virtually last time. Were you on the work?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It was, yeah, I was off camera for a lot of that. I was at a conference, but
That's right. Welcome
Yeah.
aboard.
yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Excited to have you on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dean, any comments, debrief?
No, good meeting. I just loved all the talk around coming up with ideas for the hill and how to get it active there. So hopefully we can make some of that come to fruition.
Yeah, thank you.
One last point of clarification. Are you reaching out to Charlene or am I reaching?
I don't know, I thought I heard you say you were gonna.
I'm happy to do it. I just wanted, that's why I'm clarifying.
I had a few, yes.
Okay, I will do it. I was reaching out to Joe at Limelight and to Charlene.
Well, you reached out to Joe already, didn't you?
No, I
reached out
did,
to
but via
Katie,
text.
Just to see if she had space available. And Lexi.
I was gonna reach out maybe to Sarah, just
Yeah, that's
say
right.
hi, and then I'll share the UI tab. Dakota's working on the forum. I don't know exactly what we need to do there for that. It sounds like it's a Hill Boulder thing that will come and support
Mhm.
the city and our as members. And then we talked about CU a little bit, just kind of being involved. At school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Meeting is adjourned.
There you go.
Okay. Bye, guys.
5:34.